I'm proud to say. We're glad to have Mr. Brent Bailey here. And Brent, come on up. I'm going to let him tell y'all about himself. But if y'all been paying attention, what's been going on in Kemper County with the power plant has been in the news. A nice big hole over there that a lot of money's been put into. And Brent, I think, will probably speak to that amongst other things. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Brent Bailey.
Got me zeroed in there.
You're live.
There we go. Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you for the kind introduction there. And as he mentioned, yes, my name is Brent Bailey, and I'm running for the Public Service Commission here in the Central District of Mississippi. So what does the Central District entail? That's 22 counties. Think of the Alabama state line, Lauderdale, Kemper, Knoxville. Come across Interstate 20, you hit the metro area, go on up to Bolivar County, come on down the river down to Jefferson County, and everything in between. So we got a pretty good footprint to work within, and we're going to be covering a lot of highway miles, shaking a lot of hands, seeing a lot of folks, and we're going to work very hard to make as many impressions, many people we can before August primary. And we've certainly already been hard at work doing that. In between the rainstorms that you're talking about. I looked like a drowned rat last Friday as I was moving around the Philadelphia Square trying to meet and greet everybody there. But we continue to get out, move around, and the Public Service Commission, as you might have seen an article in the paper the other day, about a week ago, said it's the most important position that's going to be elected that people know absolutely nothing about. And to a certain extent, that's almost correct. And so to cover that, the Public Service Commission, if you're not familiar with who they are or what they do, there's three of them: North, Central, Southern, running for Central. The Public Service Commission regulates the utilities in the state. Think electric, natural gas, water, sewer, telecom, that good old no-call list that doesn't seem to work, pipeline safety, and other issues. So you say, why do we need somebody like that? Why do we need this type of position? Some argue maybe it should be an appointed position. Well, you think about the money that's in politics nowadays. You think about the size of the corporations that derive the power that deliver those services, and you think about things like Kemper and how they came to be. There's a very real reason why we need an elected position to oversee these utilities. So you think about Entergy, 440,000 customers here in the state. Mississippi Power, 186,000. Your rural electric cooperatives lumped together about 700 and something thousand served between TVA, SMEPA. And you think about natural gas, sewer, electric, that kind of stuff. In most cases, that service provider is a for-profit corporation that's allowed by law to have monopoly status. So if your utility provider really chaps you off, who you going to turn to? What is your alternative? If it's Entergy, Mississippi Power, Atmos, Centerpoint, others, that is your sole provider, unless you go off grid or move out of the state or relocate somewhere else. So that is who you depend on, provides you affordable services, reliable services, and safe services. And because they have that, for lack of a better term, that captured customer market, they agreed to be regulated by a representative of the general public. And that's the Public Service Commission. They're there to help you ensure that you have, good service, quality rates. If you do have disagreements with the utility, they should be there to help you resolve them in a way, hopefully, that's preferable to you. So, in a nutshell, that's what I want to do. Just a quick background about myself. I'm originally from Leake County, Carthage boy. I'm actually a 6th generation Leake County. So I've been in central Mississippi a long time. My wife and I now live in rural Madison County, about 8 miles east of Canton. And we've been there about 16, 17 years now. So long lineage of good kin folks here in the central Mississippi area. Went to East Central Community College before I went to Mississippi State University. Got a degree in engineering. Worked in the engineering sector about 4 years before I went to the Mississippi Farm Bureau Federation. There I worked for the nonprofit side of Farm Bureau, not the insurance side, but the farm side of Farm Bureau. Working for rural interests, our farmers, our ranchers, our foresters here in the state of Mississippi, helping them with good conservation, energy policy, environmental policy, ensure that regulations are not overburdensome for them as they do their best to try to make a living in a very trying time. If you think about the current state of trade and tariffs and interstate, intrastate commerce, regulation policy, taxation policy, fluctuations in the market. Rural America is having a tough time right now. So I've worked for them for almost 8 years. For the last 13 years, I've worked with a clean energy nonprofit organization called 25 by 25. And our goal and objective has been to work with that states, not just Mississippi, but throughout the Southeast, in helping promote and advance common sense energy policies that creates opportunities, particularly economic opportunities for citizens, for small business, for rural communities, to create more competition out there in the marketplace, provide more choice for consumers, and hopefully to create new business opportunities for those that can provide and deliver those types of technologies. Because you look at it within a monopoly system, it's very hard to break out and break into these sectors without good guidance, good policy. And the reason we do a lot of work, myself at the Public Service Commission, 13 years ago when I started this, I really spent a fair amount of time working at the legislature. Realize that's a very challenging environment to get good policy through. The Public Service Commission, which is voted on and responsible for you to be a servant and regulate the utilities, felt that was a much more productive environment to try to do the good work that we felt needed to be done, particularly here in the state of Mississippi. So we made sure and started pounding away starting in 2009 to try to implement and put in energy efficiency programs that you pay for. However, they are administered by a utility for the purpose of helping you save money, reduce your energy use, and have a much more stable, comfortable, and healthy home, business, or industry. So I'm not sure how many are Entergy customers. All right, fair number in here. Are you aware of the energy efficiency programs currently available to you? Have you used them? If you haven't, we got to get you on them. If you don't know anything about them, that's a problem. You're paying for every month you pay a bill. You are putting, it's a few cents. It's only about 30 to 35, maybe 40 cents. But that is helping you provide the financial and technical resources you need to be a more efficient homeowner, to run a more efficient small business, to have a more efficient manufacturing sector. And that's the type of things we've been pounding hard. And we got those in place. They're working. Many of the programs, particularly for the commercial industrial side, tend to be oversubscribed. That means you get to about month of May, June, July, the money there's gone because there's that much demand. People are hungry for that type of information because they understand that, hey, this investment in energy efficiency now puts more money back in my pocket, and I accumulate those savings monthly, yearly, makes me a more profitable enterprise. So that's one of the things we worked hard since 2009 on that. We've also pushed for more competition and choice through things like net metering, distributed generation. And I know renewable energy and clean energy can get associated with certain sectors of political sides, but I tell you what, there's nothing more liberating for some folks to have that choice, that opportunity to utilize the resources we have here in the state. Again, it's your choice, but you got to throw off the regulatory constraints to allow that to happen, and that's what we've been dealing with now. So by no means am I here to bash the utilities. That is certainly not me. You got to work with these guys. The utilities provide a lot of jobs in the state of Mississippi. They've really helped bring us to establish a quality of life and a standard of living that we expect today. They've been doing it for over 100 years. They have helped facilitate a lot of economic development here in this state. There's no doubt about it. However, because of the monopoly status they have, the state legislature saw years ago that they needed to be regulated. And regulated for the benefit of you as consumers to ensure you get that quality service, access to different services. And we want to help continue that here in the state of Mississippi. But energy is not just the sole thing we're here about. Energy is certainly a large part of that issue, but you got to think of other things that were brought up. The rural internet issue, broadband, that kind of stuff. There are certainly very real gaps around Mississippi where you don't have good adequate cell coverage, where you don't have access to internet, to high-speed internet, and that has got to be addressed. And there's certain ways to do it. There's certain mechanisms to get there, but we all have to be in agreement how that's done. And it's got to be through a combination of public money as well as private sector money to ensure that we get those services out there. But it's going to have to be smart money, and those investments are going to have to be made wisely. Mention the robocall, the no-call list, and folks say, do something about it. we got laws on the books. We have anti-robo calls, we have anti-spoofing call. I mean, all that legislation is in place. But when you got folks on the other side of the pond or in South America and they're working through different networks and satellites, you know, the long arm of the law can only stretch so far. So it's going to take cooperation from federal agencies, from the companies that provide those services. When a large telecom company, you know, they give the revenue from these there's 1,500 robocalls made a second in this country. So you wonder why it seems like you get 3 or 4 a day. That's 47.5 billion robocalls every year. So, you know, there's only 300 million people here in the U.S., 320 million. So yeah, you're going to get your share of them before it's all over with. But there's certain things we can do, certain technologies that can be applied with the help of the AT&Ts of the world, the C-Spires of the world, these local exchange operators to help block these things. But I tell you what, those international calls sure generate a lot of revenue for those guys. And it's something you're going to have to work with, and we're going to have to be tough with them, no doubt about it. But it's something that we really got to do, got to be fair. So, you know, there's just so many issues at the PSC. Utility regulation can be a complex set of issues, there's no doubt about it. You got to balance the interests of the ratepayers and consumers, quite frankly, with that of the utility. However, you can sure bet I'm always going to come down on the side of the ratepayer, the side of the consumer, the side of small business, the side of residential consumers. That's just where my heart lies. That's where I've always been. That's why I'm in the race for the Public Service Commission. As Ross mentioned, I ran 4 years ago. I was your Republican nominee then, lost by just a smidgen, a handful of votes. But we certainly want to build on the momentum that we created last time, the interest, the excitement around this campaign. We had our kickoff event this past Tuesday. Very pleased, very, very pleased with the turnout we had. You know, the enthusiasm that we built, the base that was generated. It wasn't just Madison County there. We had folks from all over the Central District that, you know, some of them drove an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes in to share that evening with us. And it really meant a lot to me to have those folks there. And they're going to carry that message back out to their area as well. You know, there's, as I said, I guess before the questions start, you brought up Kemper. Kemper, you know, that conversation started in about 2008, 2009. This new great technologies, we're going to come in, we're going to demonstrate it, perfect it, commercialize it here in the state of Mississippi. We're going to take the smallest unit of Southern Company, 180,000 ratepayers, let them pay for this. How did we get there? How was that made? Well, there was a legislative vehicle, there was a legislative vehicle pushed by former administration called the Base Load Review Act. What that does is allows utilities to begin charging consumers ahead of time for design, for pre-finance, for a lot of other things before that plant ever goes online, before it ever demonstrates its viability. That's how Kemper came to be. And that legislative vehicle is still on the books today. And if you don't have somebody there who knows what in the world that means, what that allows, you could very well see another Kemper come down the pipe in some way, shape, form, fashion in another part of the state. It would be nice if that piece was gone. We've already seen a couple states here in the southeast repeal it because of the severe financial strain it has put on other parts of the nation, particularly Florida, South Carolina, because of these types of advanced charging of consumers when projects have yet to be demonstrated and shown how to be viable. But that's still there, and we need to make sure we're not going to allow that to happen. But Kemper, for the most part, was resolved by the PSC. Consumers in Mississippi Power's area are still responsible for about $1.1 billion for the remaining assets of a natural gas combined cycle unit that, as I heard the other day, is not even running at this time. Because of that addition, Mississippi Power's in a long energy situation. In other words, they have more capacity than they need because of that generation that was allowed to go forth and continue to be paid for. So now it's back in the news, as you see, because now the federal government and DOE wants their tax dollars back. They're wondering how that $380, $400-something million was spent. It was supposed to be spent on the gasification, the lignite side, the CO2 capture, the chemical side of it. and that's not operation. It was shot down by the PSC. They either, because the way the grant was structured, it had to be demonstrated to be viable and that it is generating benefit. Well, it's not. The plant was not approved. The certification revoked. So now the federal government is wondering, how do we get your taxpayer dollars back? Either give us the assets you used the money to buy, or you refund us everything. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes over the next several months. So, I mean, Kemper's, you know, that's a big thing. And that's the type of thing, that's why we need that type of dedicated, committed leadership and service to you as a ratepayer. And not even, you know, that's not throwing darts at Mississippi Power, but it's just recognizing the reality of the power and the influence of some of these utilities. How many of you know that Grand Gulf tripped offline again today? 1,400 megawatts disappeared from the grid here in South Mississippi, or in eastern part of the state.
My lights went out today.
That may have been what you may have saw the triple effect, which does put strain on the substations in McComb, McCool, Atala, out here, Cajun. So Mississippi Power on a daily basis, they have about 3,300, 3,400 megawatts, you know, to meet their reserve margin capacity factor they need to provide you energy customers power. When Grand Gulf goes offline, that's 1,400 megawatts. So you got units now scrambling to make up that reserve. That shouldn't happen in May. August, maybe. May, a shoulder month. That should not happen. So where does that 1,400 megawatts come from? Well, it's going to come from somewhere. It's going to come from Louisiana, Arkansas. They're going to get it on the Southwest Power Pool. It's coming to you. But you know what? It's not coming at $6 to $8 a megawatt hour, the Grand Gulf. It's going to be $20, $22, maybe $30 a megawatt hour. And that's going to filter down through your fuel surcharge. You're going to pay for it, and you're not going to see it. There's not enough transparency in this state in regards to how you're billed and how assets are reviewed. There's just not that. Entergy's they're generating power today on generation stations that are 59 years old. That's like saying, hey, take a drive to the coast in a 59-year-old Chevy. Think about, I mean, the reliability aspect of it. It's probably not going to have air conditioning. It's not going to have the creature comfort features. You're surely not going to get 35 miles gas miles. So that's what we got to deal with. They're going to have to replace that. They're going to have to do something with it. We can help offset that as individuals if we so choose, but whatever kind of investment is going to be made, we're going to have to make sure it's wise, it's efficient, and it's going to have a long-term return on our investment as consumers. So that's just things that we have to be aware of here in the state. And that's what I've made it kind of my job, my passion, my mission over the last 13 years to dig in, neck deep, you know, into these issues. Not always making friends along the way, but I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to do the right thing. And if that's what it takes, it's certainly what it takes. And I want to be your public service commissioner. I need your vote for August, and I certainly would like to have it in November and to represent you as ratepayers, consumers, as small business, as rural interests, because, you know, there's no either and or buts when it comes to being Mississippi to be successful. The urban centers can't have it all. We got to get rural America, rural Mississippi engaged as well. They need internet, they need access to commerce, they need good roads, infrastructure. Don't let the bridges and road dominate the system. We got infrastructure needs in water and sewer. You know, when I talk about 59-year-old generation assets, you got to drive around looking at the poles and wires as well. They need to be maintained. They need to be modernized. As consumer interests and taste change, we're going to expect certain services as well. And we can certainly help facilitate that, where there's real-time data, certain billing arrangements, etc. We've got to do things that consumers need, consumers want, and benefits them. So I'll hush. I know I rambled pretty good, covered a lot of things, but there's a lot of issues on the plate, and I appreciate the opportunity to come share with y'all and not have a 3-minute time window like we had earlier today at another function I was at. And it just gets frustrating trying to cram all that with 3 minutes, and it's just so much on the table. But I appreciate the opportunity. I certainly love to answer more and talk more. I see Mr.